Maxim, it's good to see you.
Nice to be with you. Thank you for the invitation.
We're already talking for 10 minutes about running because, one of the things I've always enjoyed, I enjoyed in our previous conversation is, the commonality with a runner. And I think you could be, not that you and I are politically on the opposite sides of the spectrum, but even if people like for the most part, are on the other opposite side, you have that commonality of running that you can always
Yeah.
talk about. And, yeah, anytime I get a chance to meet somebody, and you're still doing it, right? You're training for a marathon?
Yes, I'm still doing that. And for me, that's the only sport that I can practice right now because I'm traveling a lot across the country as the leader of the People's Party of Canada. And when you travel, you can bring your running shoes everywhere. And I'm training right now. There's a marathon in September in Montreal, and I will do that marathon. I have, as a goal to do it maybe in 3 hours and 30 minutes, 35 minutes. So we'll see. But yes, I like to run, and for me, it's a way also just to, be with the nature and being out there. I don't run inside. Actually, I don't like it. Always outside, cold or not cold or raining or no rain. I have all the gears to be able to run outside.
Do you run with music or?
No music. No, no, I don't like that. No.
God, maybe I'm not a real runner. I saw somebody post about that the other day. You're not a real runner if you have to run with music.
Yeah, I don't like that. For me, I'm just relaxing, running, and having fun. Some of my runs will be harder, other will be, my long run. I like to do it. I try to do it in nature. But yeah, it's a fun sport, and that's a way to stay in shape.
Well, and what do you say to people? First of all, do you mind sharing your age? How old you are?
62, 62.
And people must tell you you shouldn't run anymore. Or you should not do this. Blah blah blah. What is your response to that?
But they're saying, oh, it may be bad for your knee and blah blah. But for me, everything is going well. If you want to run, my advice would be buy good running shoes, and also do your stretching before and after you run. And so, start slowly and increase the kilometers, every week. But there's a way that's to be active, and you can start only by walking outside, walk, and after that running. So just have good running shoes. That's very important.
Well, I also want to point out another personal note that you shared with me that you practice intermittent fasting.
Yeah, yeah. I'm starting my first meal around 11 o'clock a.m. and my last one around 6:30, 7:30 p.m. And so for me, it's easy. I like it, and I can sleep well. And actually, I'm running early in the morning, so on an empty stomach, and a couple of glass of water before going for my run. And after that, some water, and at 11 o'clock, I'll start to have my breakfast or my lunch. So yeah, I like to do that, and that's part of my way of life now.
Well, and I think and one of the things I thought it was important for you to share that because you are the leader of the People's Party of Canada, and to me, you're setting an example for yourself by your actions, not by your words, by how you live your life, and that's physical activity, discipline with terms of your eating, and and holding yourself accountable. And I think that's important. If people that support you, if they're not aware of it, I think they should know.
Yeah, no, I like to be in shape, and I did 10 years ago, I did run 100K in 12 hours to raise the money for a food bank in my riding. I started at the south of my riding to the north of my riding. It took me 12 hours, and I wanted to do that to be an ultra marathonian, more than a marathon. It was, a nice run, a little bit tough, but I had a good coach and I was able to do that. And since that time, I try to do one marathon every year. And my next one, like I said, will be the Montreal one in September.
So you also strike me as a person you never give up with anything. Is that my
No,
is that
actually,
accurate?
yeah, but when you start a new political party, the People's Party, we created that party 6 years ago in 2018. We it was a little bit tough to build a new populist, free market political party in Canada. But the last election in 2021, we had 5% of the vote. And at the next election that may happen in Canada, maybe in a couple of weeks or before November, I hope that we'll be able to more than double our score and having our first candidates elected. Yes, you need to be patient, but we're doing politics based on ideas, and we are not looking at the survey or polling. We don't waste our time for that because we believe that the population has been manipulated in Canada by the leftist media and the radical environmentalists. So we are there with our ideas that are very different, and the more we speak about our ideas, the more popular they will become.
How do you feel right now in terms of where Canada is at? Are they waking up more?
A little bit more, a little bit more. We are following that populist wind that is coming from the US and from Europe. But because of our political system, it's the first past the post parliamentary system. It's more difficult for a new party to have our first candidate elected. The best example of that is Nigel Farage in UK. He created the new party, the Reform Party, to fight against mass immigration like us here in Canada. And he was able to have 15% of the vote. But with 15% of the vote, he was able to have only 6 candidates elected. So that system, there's no proportionality in our electoral system. Like the last campaign, we had 5% of the vote, but we we didn't have 5% of the members in parliament. So there's no proportionality. But our time is on our side, and at this election, we may be able to have our first candidate elected and do more than that. So we'll see.
Yeah, I hate to hear a little bit more because at this point I feel the masses should be waking up to this, and it's like what is it going to take for people to understand where we're at? Especially, I mean, obviously I don't live in Canada, but I follow what you guys are going through, and I who would you say is in better shape right now, Canada or the UK?
I think our economy is not growing so fast. The last 10 years, our purchasing power went down in Canada. We have that mass immigration like in UK. It's about the same. And speaking about real common sense ideas, the big challenge that we have, that I have here in Canada, is the mainstream media. The mainstream media are canceling us. They don't want to give us any visibility because I believe that they know that if we are having more visibility in the media, we will grow faster, and they don't want that. But the fact that in US you elected Donald Trump and President Trump, it is helping us in Canada because now the mainstream media, they're in a opposition, sorry, to speak about what Trump is doing in the US. So, like when Trump said that's the end of DI, that radical ideology, uh, I said that a couple of years ago that we must get rid of that ideology and promote, people based on their competence. At least now our media, our mainstream media are speaking about that. When Trump speak about ending mass immigration in the US and deporting the illegals, we are saying the same thing here in Canada, and the media are speaking about that also, but they don't say that we are the only one that is speaking, the only national political party in Canada that is speaking to end the mass immigration. So I can feel a win. The populist position, our position, are more and more popular, and that's why also I'm doing a lot of podcasts because the way to be out there is to speak with you guys and having a real discussion that is helping us to grow.
What was your first reaction when you saw Trump get reelected?
I'm not an American, I'm a Canadian. And just because, for example, on some policies, we share the same point of view. A man is a man, a little girl is a little girl. There's no transition. A man must not, play sport against women, and all these diversity, equity, and inclusion. We must abolish that. And here in Canada, we want to promote unity, equality of rights, and also meritocracy. So when he was doing that, I was very happy with him. When he decided to impose tariffs, I was not so happy, but we didn't have the right reaction here in Canada because, the main political parties, the conservative that are conservative in name only, and the liberals, they decided to impose a counter tariffs. And we Canadians are paying for that. Our position is not to impose any tariff, to just be sure to have a more productive economy here in Canada by lowering taxes to businesses, lowering taxes to Canadians, balancing the budget, cutting all the spending to foreign aid, for example, or all the money that we are giving to businesses, subsidies. So we can cut all that and having a fair and a good tax policies, and that will help also to have more productivity here in Canada. But when you impose a tariff, and when Trump decided to do that, actually he was imposing a tax on you, on Americans consumers and American businesses who are importing goods from Canada. So for us, when Trudeau decided, with the support of the conservative, to impose tariff, they are imposing tariff on us, 25%. So prices are going up. We have inflation in Canada that is supposed to be 2%. That's the official inflation rate, but the real one is about 5%. So it's not helping Canadians. Let's just don't impose any tariff. And the pressure is coming in the US. I saw that last week. Ford decided to go and see Trump, and they said, with your tariff, 25% tariffs, the price of a car will increase by 6,000. Do you want Americans to pay 6,000 more for a car? And Trump said no. So he decided to postpone the tariff until the April. So we'll see. But for us, when you impose a tariff, it's a tax that you impose on your consumers. And we are so small as a market. If you compare that with your market, you are 10 times bigger than us, and we cannot win a trade war with US. And why having that trade war? I don't understand what our mainstream politicians are doing. They are not helping Canadians by imposing 25% tariffs on all the imports coming from the US.
So how do you think Canada will respond when these go into effect? It's supposed to be April 2nd.
Yeah, yeah. So they said that they will impose tariff, other tariff, and we will increase that trade war, and that's not good. And actually, the former prime minister, the conservative former prime minister Stephen Harper, said in a national newspaper, he wrote a letter and he said, we must impose these tariffs. Yes, prices will go up in Canada. Yes, Canada may go into a recession because of that, but we must do that to preserve our sovereignty. And Canada must not be a 51st state. But we must not do that. We are a sovereign country. And Canada will never be a 51st state. And if you want to keep our country, just have the right economic policy. And we don't have the right economic policies right now.
What did you think when Trump's referenced that several times about Canada becoming the 51st state?
Yeah, it's helping the traditional politician here in Canada. They're fighting that. Oh no, we won't be. But there's no question. Trump has a point when he said, I'm imposing tariff because you don't control your borders, and he's right about that. And because also you don't reinvest in your own defense. He's right about that. So let's do the right thing, protecting our country. We are right now a threat to your national security, and a threat to our own national security with mass immigration and all these people that are crossing the border after that and go to the US. So Trump has a point there. We need to fix that. And just Trudeau decided after 9 years in power to do something there to secure our country. So we must thank President Trump for that. Right now, we have a government in Ottawa that has as a priority to protect Canadians and to work to give more security to us by being serious at the borders and reinvesting in our own defense. That's a little bit late, but at least the Trudeau government is starting to do that. So that's a good news. And actually, these tariffs, if they're going on for, I don't know, a month or 2 months or 3 months, that will hurt you. But when we are imposing our own counter tariffs, that is not helping us and Canadians. So this country will stay Canada. And if we want to work to protect our sovereignty, we need to do the first thing, to protect ourselves, to work on our borders, to be sure to secure the north of our country, the border with Russia. So we need to be serious about it. And Canadians, actually, if we do that, they will want to stay in Canada and not being the 51st state.
And Trudeau is gone now, right? It's Carney is now the prime minister.
Yeah, Carney was appointed prime minister a week ago, and we may have an election maybe starting this weekend. But actually, we will have to have an election before the third week of October. So if we don't have an election this spring, we'll have an election in October. But because of the parliamentary system, Carney can be prime minister without being elected by the population. But he was elected by the members of the Liberal Party of Canada. So I don't know what Carney will do. I think he will call an election as soon as possible, and that would be good for us.
What's the likelihood he'll stay if he calls an election?
Yeah, right now we have the mainstream media in Canada that are, pro Carney and pro that new leader. Our media are very leftist, and some journalists are not journalists; they're activists, leftists, and activists. So the mainstream media is promoting Carney. Carney is doing well in the polls right now, but I don't believe that he will win. After 9 years, Carney and Trudeau, they share the same policy. The last one is about climate change. Carney, Trudeau, and Poilievre, the leader of the Conservative, all of these leaders will stay in the Paris Accord and will impose more regulations and taxes on Canadians for that. We at the People's Party, we are like Trump about that. We want to withdraw from the Paris Accord, no more taxes, no more regulations. There's no climate emergency. So we'll have a big debate at the election, and I hope that the election will be called as soon as possible.
This episode is brought to you by Vaulted, launched by McIlvaney Financial Group. The simplest and most affordable way to own physical gold and silver. Physical gold is the only asset outside of the control of the government and banking system. They can print dollars, but they can't print gold. Click on the promo link in the show notes or go to vaulted.blbvux.net/coffeeandamike. Well, and he's also probably very, I'm assuming, all for these tariffs then as well.
Oh, yeah. Carney, Trudeau, Carney, Poilievre, all these leaders are for tariffs. And, they think that it's the best way to preserve our sovereignty and to fight back against President Trump. But we don't need to do that. We just need to have better policies, like I said, in Canada, and let, these tariffs. Because as you know, Trump did run on a platform to lower inflation. And by imposing tariff, prices will go up, and that will have an impact on inflation. So Trump cannot impose these tariffs for so long. Our position is to what President Trump wants is to reopen the free trade agreement that we have with you guys and with Mexico. It's supposed to be reopened in 2026. Trump wants to do that right now, and we are okay for that. We are saying let's put everything on the table, reopening the free trade agreement right now, and having a new deal with Trump. That's the only solution. But now, the federal government and the opposition, the Conservative Party, are not ready for that. We need to go and see Trump and say, okay, let's have a full negotiation, reopening the free trade agreement, and we won't have to wait until 2026, and let's have a deal together. And I think we'll be able to have a good deal with President Trump if we put everything on the table.
Does it make you wonder, what the underlying agenda is for Trump and these tariffs, like deeper than, because I have a hard time believing is the border. I mean, that's a bonus, but
Yeah.
I also, and I've had other conversations with people here on here, and they've pointed out that, we are and talk about the United States, and we can talk about Canada in a second, but, are we at the end of our financial debt system? So what is this, or is this changing, moving into a new system, whatever that may be, where it has some type of stable coin or gold, or because, you've read about the amount of gold that's been coming back to the United States right now. So
Yes.
are we devaluing the dollar intentionally by, doing these tariffs? Inflation's going up. Is that the real play here? And how does that affect Canada?
Yeah. So you have a point there. I agree with you that Trump said he wants to repatriate the manufacturing industry in the US. And, he said, America first, and I can understand. So he wants to do that by imposing tariff. That's create, uncertainty in the market, and maybe that will help him to have corporation that will go and transfer their activities in the US. But at the short term, it's a huge cost for American consumers. But that being said, yes, also, if it's serious about the dollar, right now in the US, what you are doing, you are, exporting your dollars and importing, goods. And so that needs to change. You cannot do that, for another 50 years. And I agree with you. We may have a monetary reset based on gold. You have the BRICS countries, you have Europe, you have America, and, it's changing. The geopolitics is changing very fast. And I believe that we'll have a kind of a gold standard. That's why, big and central bankers are also buying a lot of gold, and also Bitcoin can have a play there. But something is happening. And yes, you're right. It can, I don't know, it can happen in a year, in 2 years. I know that to celebrate the 1st of July next year, I've read that you want to have a new treasuries and bonds that will be backed on gold. So something is happening there. And yes, and for people, the best way to protect ourselves from inflation is also to buy gold or Bitcoin, but to get rid of the dollar. And here in Canada, the impact will be huge because our central bank don't have any. We don't have any gold. We don't have a gold reserve. We are maybe the only central banks in OECD countries, in Western countries, that doesn't have any gold reserve. So if that is happening, that can be a huge cost for us.
Oh, I didn't realize. So Canada's gold reserve.
Zero. We have a lot of your treasuries.
Yeah, and that's what's incredible to me about what's going on right now, because it's an incredible time to be alive in this world, especially covering, what you're doing and talking about all this stuff. Because I don't know about you. I mean, I have these people on, subject matter experts, talking, sharing, their knowledge, but I have no idea which way this is going to go.
Yeah. No, you're right about that. It's we are making history right now. Uh, the election of Trump is the beginning of a revolution. Only the beginning. Not only in U.S., in Europe, in Canada, new political parties like us, but also a new monetary order. All these countries, including Canada, we have huge debt, huge deficit, and we cannot sustain that for another 10 years. Something will happen. We'll need to have a reset, and that may be costly for Canadians.
What does a reset in Canada look like to you?
But you know what? It will. We are exporting a lot of goods. Our economy is based on export. Our dollar is very weak right now, going down a little bit. It was 70 cents a couple of months ago. Now it's about 68 cents if you compare that with the US dollar. So if our purchasing power is going down because of that reset, we'll be in a recession here in Canada, and we may be in a recession right now. So that will have a huge impact. The best way to be ready to fight that and to be ready for a reset is to, in our country, balance our budget. And we are able to do that in 1 year if we are serious. Our deficit is $62 billion. And we can do that if you're serious by cutting foreign aid. We can save $8 billion there. By cutting corporate welfare subsidies to businesses, we can save $10 billion there. By cutting the money that the federal government in Canada is giving to the mainstream media, we want the media to be independent, and they're not right now. The mainstream media is dependent on the government for money. So we can save another $2 billion. So if you're serious, you can balance the budget. What I'm telling you, to be ready for a reset, we need to balance the budget and have surplus the next year, and after that, lowering tax to everybody, a smaller government in Ottawa. You have Dodge in the US. I said in 2020 that we need to have our Department of Downsizing the federal government in Canada. Before Dodge, we need to look at that and being sure that the federal government will be smaller. We will respect the autonomy of provinces in Canada and respect taxpayers. So if you have a smaller government and you cut a lot of spending, you balance the budget, you cut taxes, that's the way to give more money in the pockets of Canadians, and that will help when that reset will happen.
Well, and it's funny. Would you say 62 billion is your deficit?
Yeah, it's our deficit. Yeah.
Which sounds like nothing compared to the United States, because it's like 37
Yeah,
trillion.
yeah, but Canada, 40 million people, like California. We have a very small economy, 10 times smaller than your economy. So for us, and that's only the deficit at the federal level. You need to have the other deficits coming from provinces. So, but at the federal level, it's $62 billion. That's why, it's a lot. But for us, it's a lot, but we can balance that, and we can do the real cut to be able to balance it in a year.
No, I mean, I wasn't downplaying 62 billion. It sounds so small in comparison to 37 trillion. But yeah, no, 62 billion is a huge deficit.
But like you, for a comparison, like all the budget of the national defense that you have in the U.S. is the cost to pay for the interest on your debt. Same thing in Canada. All the money that we give to our national defense in our budget is the interest that we have to pay on our debt. And, just to tell you, that I spoke about the deficit, but the deficit of last year, $62 billion, but our debt, it's $1,200 billion. And Trudeau was able to double our national debt in 9 years. Our national debt, when Trudeau became prime minister in 2015, was $600 billion. And 9 years later, it took 148 years to have a debt of $600 billion. And for Trudeau, in only 9 years, he was able to double that to $1,200 billion. So that's our debt. But the cost to pay for our interest on our debt each year, it's about $52 billion. So that's a lot. So if you compare with you, we're about the same. We're not in a good fiscal situation in Canada.
I mean, it sounds like it's unsustainable, just similar to what's happening here in the United States. Like just can't continue like this.
But that's why it's unsustainable here in in US and in Europe and in UK. All Western countries have huge deficit and huge debt. That's why we are speaking about a reset. You cannot, uh, borrow money all the time like that. That must end, and that end will come. I don't know when, but it will.
Yeah, I mean, what would a reset look like to you, though, in regards to how the people, the general public, might respond? Because, I mean, can you see a scenario where things, unrest could spike up and possibly go kinetic?
I don't think so. Right now, uh, people are not happy with the federal government. That's why I believe that but Carney now, the Liberals will be out at the next election. So, and they will try some changes. But the bad news is the Conservative Party in Canada are conservative in name only, and they don't want to do the bold reforms that we need. But we are there, and that's our role, the People's Party, to push the conservative and in the right direction to do this bold reform. And if we are able to do that, that will be easier for the population. But right now, we need to stop that mass immigration in our country. I'm the only one who's speaking to have a pause on immigration here in Canada and to deport our illegals. So, but it's if we don't do this reform, I can see the social cohesion will be a big challenge. That would be a big challenge.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I've spoken about. The mass deportations that we were promised here. I don't know how that's possible once they get here to get them out. I mean, you know, I don't believe the numbers. I think the numbers are much, much higher than what they're reporting. I don't know about in regards to Canada, but, you know, good luck getting people and putting them back in their home countries.
You have a point there. And actually, here in Canada, right now, they're saying there's about 25,000 to 500,000 of illegals. So we don't know the right number. We don't know who they are. We don't know where they are. So, yes, that will take a lot of resources to find these people and deport them. And actually, at the end of this year, we'll have another 4 million illegals. So that 4 million is coming from, international students where their students permit won't be enforced anymore, will expired, and they don't want to leave the country. They will have to leave the country, so we will need to deport them. And also we have temporary foreign workers. They have a temporary permit. They will expire this year. So all that these people that add another 4 million people illegals that may be illegals if they don't by themselves leave the country. So it's a big challenge, and that's why I said we need to put all the resources over there, not to open our borders to new foreigners or immigrants. Let's have that pause. Let's have that moratorium for immigration in Canada and put our resources there to find these illegals. That's the big challenge. You're right about that.
What about what is the position right now in Canada in regards to Russia, Ukraine?
Yeah, we have the conservative and the liberals who are, pro-Ukraine, and they're ready for that war to go on and on. And I'm the only one who's speaking for peace. And I said in the beginning of that war, we must not participate in that war, and we did as a country. We gave to Ukraine more than $20 billion the last 3 years. So all that must stop. And I believe that Trump is doing a good job there, and I hope that we'll have a peace, peace agreement. I know that, the reality is Ukraine lost the war. That's it. That's a fact. And now, they must be at the negotiation table. And I hope that we'll be able to have a peace deal. But for Trudeau and Carney and Polyev, the liberals and the conservative, they are 100% pro-Ukraine, and they're ready to go on with that war. Actually, that's very, very bad because more and more people will die, and we don't want that. And, actually, the best deal will be a peace deal. And I'm very pleased that President Trump is working to try to achieve that with Putin and Zelensky.
Well, Europe is, it's like they're pushing for World War III here, and this is where I come back to, in regards to when I asked you about Canada and civil unrest. Based on people I spoke with, I think Europe is much more closer to something potentially kinetic because, in my view, like all these governments have, but they've literally declared war. The governments have declared war on their citizens.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You're right, and that's why populist movement in Europe is growing. The populist movement is growing, and that's why they had a survey on a poll in UK, and Nigel Farage from the Reform Party, like I told you, he had six candidates elected. And right now, if there's an election tomorrow in UK, he will win the election. So, people are fed up and they're looking for a real alternative in Europe. And we are that real alternative also here in Canada.
Do you anticipate though that Russia Ukraine it will escalate, or do you think there's an opportunity for it to be diffused?
I think it will be diffused, um, Trump is doing a good job there, and the Europeans are coming on board. A week ago they were all wah wah wah, go go Ukraine. And now they understand. And anyway, France, doesn't have any money. Same thing for Germany. All these countries, they have huge debt, huge deficit. They cannot tax more their population. So the real common sense would be to stop that. And in France, you had Marine Le Pen. She may be able to win the election from the Front National. She delivered a speech last week, and she said Ukraine must not be part of NATO. Ukraine must not be part of EU, and Ukraine must be neutral. That's the conditions that Putin is asking, and he's right about that. So you have the opposition in France with Marine Le Pen, who is against that war. So that's why I believe that Trump will be able to have that peace, and that will be the best for Europe and for us, for everybody.
I know I'm running out of time here with you, but one last thing I want to ask: what is your biggest concern right now in regards to Canada?
The biggest one is, all these politicians that, the liberal or the conservative right now, who are not working in the best interest of Canadians. And, they are globalist. They don't promote, our country first, like Trump is doing. They don't promote Canadian first. And we are. So, if we have another, liberal or conservative government, that will be, all about the same. And that's why, I can see that our party is growing and growing, and we are more influential, and that's a good news. But we have globalist leaders in Canada who are not fighting for the best interests of our Canadians. And the challenge that we have is to be out there and promote our ideas. It's a little bit more difficult with the censorship that we have in Canada. But I can tell you, we are growing. We have a lot of candidates, and we'll be ready for this election. And we are the only political party that can save our country. Because if our platform is not enforced in Canada, is not adopted, this country is going nowhere with huge deficit, huge debt, mass immigration that is destroying our social fabric. And so, and climate change and regulations that we are imposing on businesses, So we need to have a change, and more people understand that we are the only option to be sure that this country will be united and prosperous. Because right now you have independentist movement in Quebec and independentist movement in Alberta. They're so fed up, they're so mad about the Ottawa and the big government over there that they think that that will be better if they are sovereign and independent. I'm not for that. But we need to have a radical decentralization in our country. We need to have a political party that will respect our constitutions. Right now, it is not the case with the conservative and the liberals. But the more votes we'll have, the more influential we'll be as a political party. And I'm pretty optimistic for the future. If we are growing, I think we'll be able to influence Canadian politics in the right way for the better of our country.
Where do you think we sit? Where do you sit? Where does Canada sit a year from now? They'll be doing better, worse?
I think we'll enter into a recession if we are not in a recession now. So with these tariffs and that our own government is imposing on us Canadians, and the recession that is at the corner, or we'll see the numbers maybe in a couple of weeks. But yeah, I think it will be economically, it can be worse than it is right now.
You see, people listening, you see why Maxim and I run so much? Because look what we just spent 40 minutes talking about.
Yeah, we need to be in shape to speak like that.
Well, just some kind of outlet, right? Because and this is where I don't know if you feel this way, but people that I've interacted with for a long time that have just been in this blissfully unaware. They sit on the couch and they want everybody else. They want somebody else to take care of all this. Well, that time is gone. They're in denial. People are in denial, but we're not going back to the way life was before COVID.
No. No. We need to fight for our freedoms. We need to be out there and to fight like we did. I was the only one during COVID-19 in Canada, the only one who was speaking against the mandates, the draconian measures, the stay-at-home orders, the curfew that we had in Montreal, the vaccine passport, speaking for freedom of choice with informed consent. You need to be out there to fight. If you don't fight, nobody will do that for you. So that's why I'm asking people, come with us, be part of the change, be the change, become a member of the People's Party of Canada for you Canadians. And, we will do our best to have a better country.
Where can people find you, Maxim?
Yeah, Maxime Bernier on Twitter. They can also go on our website, peoplespartyofcanada.ca. They click on platform. They can read our platform. And I must tell you, if they like our platform and they're Canadians, I hope they will support us at the next election. And if they don't like our platform, you don't vote for us because we won't change. We are doing politics based on ideas, and we are promoting our strong vision for this country.
One last thing I want to ask you is, what is the state of healthcare in Canada right now?
It's not, we have a waiting time for surgeries. Your healthcare system is not working well in the US.
Terrible. It's terrible, Maxim.
It's terrible here. Do you know why it's terrible? Because it's 100% private, and us is 100% state-owned. We need to have a mix, like in Europe, and I'm arguing for that. We need to have a universal coverage for everybody, and they will be able to choose if they want to go to a public hospital or private clinic, like they have in Sweden, like they have in Germany and in European countries. They are spending less on healthcare than us Canadians and you Americans, and they have better service. So for us, we need to do this change in Canada also, to have more private delivery of services, but everybody must be able to have a public insurance and being able to choose what they want to do with that. But here in Canada, it's all, managed by the state, managed by government. And when you have that, it's not effective, it's not productive. So we need to change that here in Canada. But I don't want to have a 100% private system like you in the US. The best one, it's a mix of both. They have this system in Europe. We need to do the same here in North America.
You know what I think the perfect system is?
When you're in shape.
To intermittent fast, to run, hold yourself accountable, stay away from processed food, And individuals say so many times. People say to me, what's the solution? What's the solution? And then I say it. I suggest it because what do I know? And they don't like what I have to say. They don't. I'm like, okay, what do you want to hear? You want to fix things. Fix things in your own house. Stop buying the garbage at the stores. It's garbage.
You're right about that. They must do like you, Michael. Eat well, sleep well, have fun, do some sport, and just be informed about what is happening in your society and be part of the change in your society. Don't wait on your couch. Be active like you are, and like that, we're gonna build a better life for us and a better society.
Maxim, I always enjoy talking to you. Thanks for doing this. Look forward to our next conversation and continuing to follow your work.
Thank you very much, Michael. Have a nice day.
Mic drop.